Welcome to Hey Coach Tony, the top broadcast of youth sports, where you get to call in and give your opinion. Call 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. Give your opinion. And now here's your host, Tony Fiorino.
Hey, happy Saturday, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. I am your host, Tony Fiorino. As you know, each week we hit the hottest topics in youth sports. And as always, we want to hear what you guys have to say, so we've opened up the studio lines for you at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. You know, this week we're going to revisit a topic that we touch on from time to time. And that topic is trash talking, and specifically trash talking in youth sports. It's been around forever, and you know what? It'll stay around forever. But it makes me scratch my head. You know, I really sit and think about this. What I want to know is, why does trash talking even exist at the youth level? And more importantly, what's the best way to handle it as a coach or a parent? You got a trash talking story? Well, I want to hear it. Give me a call in the studio, 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. But make it a good one, because you know what? I got a doozy for you. I got an email during the week. It recanted the events of a soccer game of 10-year-old boys. This was a travel soccer game, and it was basically pitting two very competitive and talented travel teams. Apparently, it was a hard-fought game, and during this post-game handshake, which if you listen to the show, you know what a huge fan I am of the post-game handshake. Well, anyway, during this post-game handshake, a member of the winning team commented to two players of the losing team with something along the lines of, "How does it feel losing to us twice?" Basically rubbing it in the kids' faces. Now, personally, I think it was a pretty pathetic statement. I mean, pretty childish, pretty pathetic statement, don't you think? Only thing worse would have been something like, "Nah, nah, 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 nah. Winners rule, losers drool. You stink." I mean, pretty pathetic a shot. Adam, don't you agree? I mean, pretty weak statement.
Yeah, but you said these kids were 10?
10 years old. 10 years old.
Jeez, wow.
But again, even at 10 years old, I'd say that's a pretty pathetic attempt at trash talking. I mean, you agree?
I would agree with that.
All right. Well, you want to know what makes this even more pathetic? The comment came from the coach of the winning team. I kid you not. All right.
Now it makes it 10 times worse.
Well, these comments not only came from an adult, but the adult, the coach, the guy who's supposed to instill sportsmanship in these young kids. So when I heard this, I was going to say I really couldn't believe it, but I can. I mean, I've been doing this for years now, so I can believe anything now. Here we are trying to get young children to stop acting like young children, and now we have to give life lessons to the coaches. Well, again, 855-HEY-COACH is a number if you have any trash-talking stories you want to share. But while we're waiting for your calls, allow me to walk you through the rest of this story, because it does indeed get better. And by the way, if we have any problems in the studio today, Adam is once again battling with his computer. But this story actually does get better. This is all according to reports that I've gotten from people who were actually at this game. And in case you're wondering, I reached out to as many of the adult supervisors involved in this case as is possible. I called the presidents of both towns' soccer organizations. I called reached out to the president of the WYSL, which is the sanctioning organization that manages this league. And yes, if you're wondering, I did indeed contact the coach directly. And we'll go through the rest of the story. So according to these reports, the coach made these comments to two boys at the end of the handshake line. These comments were within earshot of some parents and obviously some of the other players. Now, interestingly enough, for the situation, one of the spectators at that game happened to be the president of the soccer association from the losing town's club. This individual did what I believe should have been done and confronted the coach about what he had said. Now, apparently, the coach neither apologized nor denied making these comments. 855-HEY-COACH is a number in the studio. Now, you think the story can't get any better? Well, it does. Get this. Not only were these comments made by a grown adult, this guy, when confronted by the losing town's soccer president, used this as part of his defense. He told her that he played professional soccer. You believe that? I mean, first of all, this would hardly be an excuse for making a complete idiot out of yourself by trash talking down to a 10-year-old kid. But when I heard this, I just had to go into research mode for myself. I'm not going to say the guy's name. Out of respect, I will tell you the only person who spoke up clearly, and by the way, very objectively, was the president of the losing team's soccer club. Lovely lady. She was very polite, very kind, and she did ask me to respect her wishes to keep names and specific names of the towns out of the story. And as most of you know, that is so against my nature. But since she was so accommodating, I want to be accommodating as well. But I did go do some research. I'm not going to say the guy's name, but I scoured Google. I scoured Wikipedia, trying to find any single shred of evidence that this guy played professional soccer. You want to know what I found? You guessed it. Nothing. Nothing at all. I Googled this guy's name, and all I could find is where he works and that he coaches in this soccer team. There is no connection to him and professional soccer. Doesn't mean he didn't, but it means one of two things. Either this guy played pro soccer for about an hour and a half and was just no good at it, so there's no record of him, or, and I hope this isn't the case, the second option is that this guy is even more pathetic and covered up his Mongo behavior on the field by adding false claims of professional soccer stardom on top of it. Either way, got to tell you, this guy either had a horrible week and decided to take it out on 10-year-old boys, or he belongs nowhere near children, coaching them at least. All right, 855 is the number in the studio line. Now, I will tell you that even though some people were not comfortable returning phone calls or getting on the phone with me, I did have some email exchange, and I'm going to walk through some of that because the first one kind of rubs me the wrong way. I did have a brief email exchange with the president of the soccer club from the winning side. This is the team whose coach trash talked down to the 10-year-old kids. Seems like a pretty straightforward question that I asked. And I simply said, dear, and I'm not going to use the name, dear guy. It was brought to my attention that during a game of 10-year-old boys from two towns, your coach addressed two opposing players after the game with something along the lines of, how does it feel losing to us twice? Interestingly enough, my show this week is about trash talking. We usually spend our time on this topic addressing how to keep kids from making inappropriate comments. This is the first time I'll be addressing concerns over coaches directing trash talking towards children. I'm continuously gathering bits and pieces of the story and would be very interested to hear your side and your perspective on the incident. Want to hear their response? Of course you do. Tony, not even, hey, Coach Tony, not dear Tony, just Tony. I'm replacing words, so I'm protecting not protecting the innocent. I'm protecting those who can be called out. Tony, our youth soccer club's objective is to provide children with the opportunity to participate in a soccer experience where they can develop positive self-esteem and build character by learning the virtues of hard work, respect, honesty, self-control, teamwork, competition, and sportsmanship. We do not condone any behavior that is inconsistent with these principles. We have no direct comment with respect to the alleged incident to which you referred. We do expect our coaches, players, parents, and opponents to act in a manner consistent with our objectives. Well, thank you, Mr. President, for simply quoting your mission statement. You could have opened up any corny, hokey youth sports book and turned to page 7 and read me exactly the same thing. I didn't ask you what your goals or your mission were. So, in fact, what I did is I replied. And I got a little cute, but it was still within the boundaries of good taste. I said, okay, dear guy, I must have gotten some bad information. Between all the organizations involved, I'm trying to build an accurate representation of this incident. I was told that this incident was brought to the board's attention and that it was being handled. So should I assume that there is no investigation and that no action has been taken against the coach in question? I'm available to speak on the phone if that's easier for you. Call me at my number. You want to know what their final word was? Tony, again, no dear Tony, no hey Coach Tony, just Tony. We have no further comment other than as expressly indicated in our prior email. Weak. I mean, that is weak. Somebody comes out and basically calls you on the fact that you have a coach who acted, in the absence of physical abuse on a kid. I got to tell you, trash talking down to a 10-year-old kid is about as pathetic as it gets. And the response I get from the president of that town soccer association is basically no comment, fluff, 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 BS, 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 pie in the sky, hokey garbage. Thanks. Tell me the town who has it in their mission statement, our goal is to degrade young children and to verbally abuse them every chance we get, and we hope that our coaches do the same. Really, really weak. Really weak. Now, I did have also, by the way, 855-HEY-COACH is the number in the studio. I do have a little bit of some of the email dialogue that I had with the president of the town that lost. Like I said, this lady was pretty accommodating, and she was pretty objective about the whole thing. So I sent basically the same initial email. Here's what I heard. Here's what I was told happened. I would love to get your opinion for the show Saturday. So her response was, "Hi, Tony," which was nicer than just Tony. What you have learned so far is correct. It was shocking and totally out of line. Thankfully, I was at the game and addressed the coach, and we're fortunate that we belong to a league with processes for reporting such behavior. I've never had to address any coach about trash talking, but I am seeing an escalation during games by other coaches, and it is passed off as gamesmanship and goes hand in hand with youth referee intimidation. Thankfully, I can report that the following day, I almost said the town. I didn't black it out here. The opposing team's coach apologized to me via email to be passed along to the two players. To finish up, being involved in youth sports is an honor and a huge responsibility, not a power trip. Now, I thought that was a very well-written email, and if I didn't have more information, I would have probably left it at that. But my reply to her was, and not just a poke at an open wound, I said, "Okay, dear ma'am, part of what I heard was that when you initially addressed the coach, he showed zero remorse. Do you feel he was convinced to apologize once the higher-ups got word of this?" Her response, and that's the final word on this one, "It is true that on site following the game there was no remorse. However, I believe his subsequent apology was genuine." Now, Adam, you've heard some of this. What that last statement, what do you make of that?
I don't know. I don't know if it was genuine, to be honest.
I think this lady is an incredibly polite lady.
Yeah.
Who I believe, and again, I think part of anybody's responsibility as an administrator of a youth league is, I think part of your DNA has to be smooth things over. See, like a guy like me, I could be the administrator of a league if you want to get stuff done, but if you want everybody holding hands and being happy at the end of the day, I'm not the guy to be running your league. So this lady, obviously, she didn't realize that I knew that the guy showed no remorse there on the field.
Yeah.
And Adam, thank you for being nice as well, because you know what? What horse hockey? Because there is no way this guy mustered up a sincere apology.
Nah, no way.
Dude, you get called out for trash talking 10-year-old kids, and your first response is basically, there's nothing wrong with what I said. I mean, anybody, including my... Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, is there any punishment for this guy? Is he getting suspended?
We're gonna get to that.
Okay,
we're gonna get to that. But the bottom line is, listen, we have all slipped up. We have all said things we don't want to say. We have all done things we don't want to do. The adults among us, when you get called out, if I get caught, stealing an extra scoop on my kid's ice cream cone, boy, that's pretty pathetic. If you call me out on it, I'm like, you know what? It was hot. All right, I shouldn't have done that. All right, great. You caught me. I trash talk to a 10-year-old kid, and a level-headed adult addresses me. You know what? The immediate response has to be, boy, you know what? My emotions got the better of me, blah, blah, blah. This guy, his first reaction was, this is part of the game. And like I said, pro player or not, which, by the way, I found zero information tying this guy to any professional league and or team in any sport, your first response, I'm sorry, emotional or otherwise, it's how you really feel. Now, you can have some time and really think about this and have 7 people say, wow, what a jerk you were, and then you can revise your statement. But when the day is done, Mrs. President, thank you for all your information. But if you bought that apology as sincere, I got a bridge for sale. All right, listen, we're going to continue to talk trash talking when we get back from break. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony on 940 and 1510 ESPN Radio. You're probably catching me live online as well on iHide.com, where you just search for Hey Coach Tony. This morning we are talking trash talking, and I just rolled through a story about a pathetic excuse of trash talking that occurred at a 10-year-old soccer game. Unfortunately, the pathetic excuse for trash talking came from one of the adult supervisors, the coach of the opposing team. We're going to start getting to your calls at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622 if you got your own trash talking story or if you have something you want to add. In fact, I think we're going to go to line 3 and we're going to go to John, who's calling in from Long Island. Hey, John, good morning. You're on Hey Coach Tony. What do you got for me?
Good morning, Coach Tony. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. I don't really have any great trash talking stories from 10-year-old kids or coaches because I don't think there are that many. I can't imagine that there's more people like this coach out there doing stuff like this because it's the most of the trash talking, if there's any we've ever gotten from our kids, and we jump on it right away, is there's a fly ball or something like that, and one of the kids yells, drop it, or some asinine thing like that.
Yeah. And
right away, you go over to the kids and say, look, we don't do that, okay? We don't act that way. I usually go over to the other coach, and it's happened once, but I apologize. Look, that won't happen again. We don't tolerate stuff like this. And I think especially you're talking about 10, 11, and 12, there really is no room for trash talking because, number one, the kids don't understand the whole process. If you play on a more higher level, there is some trash talking going on, but it's more of I'm going to back it up with something. I can't imagine this coach could sit there at night and say to himself, I really didn't do anything wrong. I was just having fun with it. With a 10-year-old kid who takes things very literally,
sure,
that he thinks that it was just in fun or it was just part of the game playing professional soccer. Is there such thing as professional soccer?
I think they still have it. I'm sorry to all the soccer players
there
out
is
there.
one thing that happened in one of our games last week, which was pretty interesting, and I really didn't know how to handle it. Because, you know what? I did know how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle it with an 11-year-old kid.
Okay.
I'm on a U12 baseball program, and we're starting to call pitches for some of the pitches. The catchers are throwing down some signs, fastball, changeup, whatever. The kids in the box, and our pitching coach is telling the catcher, what they throw, fastball in, fastball away, curveball, whatever. The kid at the plate, an 11-year-old kid, is peeking. Now,
stealing signs.
You know what peeking is.
Yeah, stealing
right?
signs, yeah.
Okay? He looked directly down. He's in the box. He's looking directly down at the catcher, looking at the sign. Now, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, did that kid just peek? And I'm like, let me give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's just looking down at his feet, trying to set his feet and everything else. The next pitch, he does it even worse. He almost bends over to look at the catcher's sign. I sit there, and I just yell loud, hey, hey. And the kid looks at me, the 11-year-old, and I said, don't do that. Right? And now, everybody knew. The coach looked at me. Everybody could see what was going on.
Yep.
And so the kid stopped it. After the inning, the umpire comes up to me and goes, hey, coach, there is no rule against that. And I said to him, oh, there's a rule. And you know what I'm supposed to do.
There's pitcher's justice.
I can't do that. I said, but, now what was I supposed, if that was a college game or a upper echelon travel, say 18-year-old, what was I supposed to do?
Well, let me first put on my former author and good guy hat. Here,
yes.
You could, as a coach, you can do something pretty cool here, and the lesson is not for your pitcher, and the lesson is not for the batter. The lesson is for your catcher. Tell your catcher, hey,
right,
guy's trying to steal signs, so do me a favor. If we're calling for a pitch outside, set up inside until he turns away, and then move to the outside. So,
but I'm not even talking about positioning. He's looking down to see if it's a fastball, curveball, changeup, whatever. But I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Well, and again, you can at 12 you probably aren't going to get very far with it. But yeah, you can start talking about second sign and stuff like that. Now again,
Right.
what John from Long Island is alluding to, had this taken place in a college game, and I alluded to pitcher's justice. If you as a batter, and this may be a life lesson for the young baseball players out there, if you are ever caught trying to pick up a catcher's signs by looking at them directly, you're going to get thrown at. And you're going to get thrown at probably until you stop looking in for signs. I mean, that's just the way it is. 12-year-olds, by the way, you did do the right thing and not tell them that. Now, I think you could have.
I was at the point where I didn't know. I knew what I was, but I just yelled, and everybody turned to look. And I just looked at the kid and I said, don't do that. You're not allowed to do it. But the umpire was like, Coach, there really is no set rule against that.
Sure.
And he looked at me and I go, Blue, I said, you do understand. He goes, I understand. He knew it. But I went over to the coach and I was just like, and the coach was like, I got it. He was like, I got it.
Well, and by the way, that was the right thing to go do. I mean, between you and me, heat of the moment, the pitcher in you it probably came out. But the fact is, you go to the other coach and say, Coach, you know what? You and I both know there's no rule against that. But you also know that, as this kid gets older, he's going to get drilled in the head with a fastball if he's trying to pick up signs. Do the kid a favor and teach him to just react and not.
And you know what the rule is, right? You tell a catcher, tell him change up away. And I'm coming up, and they want a fastball.
Well,
see if he wants to look at the next pitch. But
boy, talk about inappropriate stuff for 12 and 13-year-olds. Again, John is alluding to some of the subtleties that most people don't know. If the umpire is calling a bad game, what was the old one? That you would have the catcher call a pitch out. The catcher would jump out for the pitch out, and the fastball would drill the umpire right in the chest. So, if you want to dong a guy, you call a change up away, and the catcher sets up away, and then you give him, a commercial-free rock block of chin music.
But this is, like I said, at that age, there was no, like I said, I do not tolerate my kids at all. Any kind of trash talking, any kind of, and the trash talking, like you said, is pretty lame. Drop it, miss it, you stink. I understand. But I honestly, the minute I hear it, I'll squash it, because there's no need for, at that level, worry about yourself. Worry about what you're trying to do. Don't worry about what someone else is trying to do. If a kid is good, you're not getting on him because he's good. It's kind of, I think a zero tolerance policy at that age is a must. Mandatory. With that stuff.
No question. Because as you said, John, as we get older, as we start to play in college, not only is trash talking permitted, there is a real sophistication to it. It is as much a mind game as anything else. And I don't mind saying it. I was either the best at it or the worst at it. I was a trash talker big time. I would be in the on-deck circle telling a guy, better not throw me a fastball. I mean, I would just be getting on people's case. So I wasn't really subtle about it. I was more of a jerk. If you were on my team, you loved it. If you're on the other team, you hated me. John.
The only problem is, when you trash talk, you usually try to back it up. I guess your biggest problem.
All right, John, thank you for the call. And, John, stick around because, not on the phone, but stick around and listen, because this is not just about trash talking. There's a real reason why I had to do this story this week. It's because this story really gets to the heart of what's wrong with youth sports and why problems like this, you heard it first here, problems like this are never going to go away. Do I have your attention now, everybody? Good, because when we get back from break, I'm going to sum up why these problems like trash talking and adult behavior are never going to go away, and why this modest little radio program of mine is going to be around forever. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're with Tony Fiorino on the Hey Coach Tony show. We air live every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. You can listen to us on the air in New York and Connecticut on AM 940 and 1510 ESPN Radio. Online live at heycoachtony.ihigh.com. And if you missed the show, be sure to hook us up on YouTube, where you can check out all of the past episodes of Hey Coach Tony. All right, we're talking trash talking this morning, and I kind of gave you a little teaser before the break that when we came back, I was going to tell you why this is never going to go away. Well, before I do, I want to get to just one email, and I got this one during the break. Comes to us from our buddy Joe in Brookfield. Hey, Coach Tony, a different angle for you to think about. We all know what trash talking is, and no one thinks it's good for anyone. But the youth games and even high school games I see don't have any talking. It's like the kids are watching a movie. I want my players to talk. I want them to get vocally into the game. And obviously, I don't condone trash talk, but with an emphasis on talk comes some inappropriate comments. No? I mean, the only worse thing than trash talk is a group of athletes chanting, "We want a pitcher, not a belly itcher." Come to think of it, that is trash talk. In any case, when the trash talk arises, the coach must address it and make it clear that that type of talk will not be tolerated. But please, not a quiet game. Well, I tell you what, Joe in Brookfield, thank you very much for the email, because I had forgotten about the precursor to all trash talking, which is the heralded, "We want a pitcher, not a belly itcher." What the hell, Adam, what's a belly itcher? And why wouldn't we want one?
I couldn't tell you. You'd have to Google that one.
Well, and then it turned to potty mouth when kids would start with, "We want a catcher, not a butt scratcher." So like potty mouths everywhere evolved, and we are where we are today. But yeah, I got to tell you, I do think, to answer with Joe's concern, you want chatter. You certainly want some chatter in your dugout. You want guys involved in the game. And I think there's a fine line between trash talking and, I don't want to call it taunting and making it sound like a bad thing, but boy, as the kids get older, there is a psychological piece to this game. But again, at 10 years old, no such thing. All right, now let me tell you why I really had to do this piece. It's not really about trash talking. It's because this story really does indeed get to the heart of what is wrong. One of the biggest things wrong with youth sports, in my humble opinion, and I'm going to explain to you why now these problems are never going to go away. I'm going to be like, my program is going to live on forever. Coach Tony is going to be like the Lone Ranger. There's going to be like 7 of us. When one of us dies, someone else is just going to take over. All right, ready? Let me ask you this. I know this town where this incident took place, by the way. It's a town that is very affluent, very well educated. So you know what? I would guess that each year the sports organizations ask a, quote, expert to come in and speak to the parents and the coaches about behavior and proper sideline etiquette. Since this town is in Westchester, and that's about as specific as I'm going to get, they might even be lucky enough to get a guy like Rick Wolf to come in and speak. If you guys don't know Rick, he's basically the good housekeeping seal of approval for sports parenting. He is a great personal friend of mine, and I refer to him often as, honestly, what I think to be the smartest guy in the business when it comes to sports parenting. He's the guy who taught me everything that I know. That didn't sound like a compliment. Rick, if you're listening, I still think you're awesome. Anyway, I'll bet really good money that this town had an expert come in. And by the way, they're no different. Most towns will do that. So let's assume that that's the case. Adam, let's assume someone in this preseason meeting that they did were to ask the president of this town, after he gave his BS statement, like the mission statement he emailed me, after this knucklehead gave that mission statement, what if someone were to ask him that night, "Hey, what do you do to a coach who violates the goals of this club?" What would you do to a coach who trash-talked to a 10-year-old boy and then showed zero remorse for doing it? Adam, what do you think the president – because the reason I'm asking you, Adam, is I know where you grew up, and I'm not going to say it. You grew up in a fairly affluent neighborhood.
Oh, I know.
I know you know.
Oh, yeah.
So let's assume it was, Adam's soccer club in Richtown, Westchester, and somebody says, "What are we going to do?" Great. The mission statement is we want this, we want support, self-esteem, blah, 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 BS, horse hockey, nonsense, fluff, cotton candy. A parent says, "What do you do to a coach who trash talks a 10-year-old boy on the opposing team?" What do you think the president of that league is going to say, Adam?
That's unacceptable and action needs to be taken, and the guy needs to be reprimanded for that.
Absolutely. And you know what? And some of the snooty, upper crusty knuckleheads in that town would probably say we should run him out of town and grab the torches and the pitchforks and let's just hang him. All right. Here is what's wrong with youth sports as it exists today, and here's why these problems are never going to go away. Everybody ready? Turn up your radio. The biggest problem with youth sports is that we all know what we're supposed to do. Adam nailed it. You know what anybody in that meeting is going to say. We all know how we're supposed to behave as parents and coaches. What's more, we all talk about what's going to happen if and when somebody steps out of line. Want to know why? Because no one ever wants to believe that their coach is the guy who's going to trash talk a 10-year-old. And when the unthinkable becomes reality, and the authorities, like this knucklehead who runs the other soccer club, are finally in a position to send a clear and simple message by taking some action, what happens? They do nothing. And when they're asked why they do nothing, what do you get? No comment. No comment. We are about self-esteem in this, and we don't condone blah, 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 blah. This pathetic slob was in a position to say, yep, we heard about it, and here's what we're going to do. That's why these problems are never going to go away. I'll guarantee each parent signed a code of conduct. Each coach had to watch that stupid video outlining how you're supposed to behave, what you're supposed to do, and what you're supposed to stand for. This is no longer in contention whether or not the coach trash-talked to two 10-year-old boys. There is no contention here. No one has told me it hasn't happened. No one has said, no way. If I'm the coach who got accused and some big-nosed Italian loser like me calls you out, I'm calling your radio show. And I'm going to tell you, guess what? Fingerprint me, give me a pap smear. I never did anything resembling that. And I'll go to my grave defending that I did not do it. This guy instead runs for the hills, hides behind the bushes, and hopes this thing just goes away. President of the league hides behind no comment. Now, again, out of respect, boy, I'm losing my temper a little bit. Out of respect for the president of that league, of the team that lost, again, I am not naming names. But boy, oh boy, I wish that I could. I wish I could tell you this guy's name. I wish I could give you his address. I wish I could tell you what kind of car he drives. Because if there was ever a reason to have a TP party, boy, this guy is it. All right, listen, all kidding aside, this is really why we have problems. As a league official in a youth sports organization, once something like this is brought to your attention, you really, really have no choice but to do something. Anything. I mean, I'm not saying we got to hang the guy in town square. I'm really not. But are you going to tell me you can't suspend the guy for a game? Just a game? Really, really weak. And so the Hey Coach Tony Bozo of the week goes to, well, a whole slew of folks. Who goes to this coach, goes to the president of his club, and while we're at it, goes to the president of the WYSL, whatever that is. Because this guy didn't even respond to an email with a decent cop-out. At least the president of the league hid behind that. I don't know what word to use for that statement that's going to be allowed to go on the air. But at least the other guy, I got to respect him enough to at least throw out a BS comment. Tell you what, WYSL, if the town isn't going to grow a backbone and do what's right, why don't you step in instead of doing your impression of a jellyfish without a backbone? Oh, boy. All right, well, listen, you know what? That reminds me, by the way, and I have this here. I got an email during the week. It's really not in relation at all to this story. But you know what? Maybe it is. I got an email from Jane in Redding, Connecticut. Excuse me. And Jane asks, hey, Coach Tony, I listen to your show, and I wonder, why are you so angry and so vicious when talking about improper behavior in youth sports? Don't you think it might be more productive to illustrate the right way to behave rather than flog people publicly when they can't defend themselves? First of all, Jane, congratulations on working the word flog into an email. Most people don't know anyone besides Jesus who was flogged. But, Jane, you know what? I'm not going to bash you. I actually want to thank you. I want to thank you for that email, and please allow me to respond because, quite frankly, I love the email. You want to know why? Jane and I seem to be the only two people in the world who understand how we're ever going to make any progress with issues like the ones we discuss every week. Fact is, there are a lot of people who write books and do seminars on sports parenting and youth coaching. There are people a lot smarter than me who are designing workshops and curriculum about how to handle these situations. There are even other radio shows about this. Here's the problem. And by the way, Adam, if we need to get to a call, you got to let me know because my computer just crapped out. Most of these people, including, by the way, soccermom.com, who I shredded just a couple of weeks ago, most of these people spend their time preaching to the choir. And that's why there's a problem. If you read any of these pathetic blogs, it's all about sunshine, rainbows, and freaking unicorns. Who do you think reads these blogs? The over-the-top dad who punched an umpire in the face last week? The Mongo coach who trash-talked to a 10-year-old boy? No. These horrible blogs, they're written by and for smug, clueless morons who get wrapped up in smelling their own farts, who can't catch their breath because they're too busy telling one another how great they all are in their behavior. That doesn't solve anything. My show's different, if you haven't figured it out. My show is designed to get in the face of stupidity. I emailed this coach the same way that I email every Mongo who violates the integrity of the sports experience for a kid. Now, I got a couple of emails. I get them every week. Say, hey, Coach Tony, do you really expect these people are going to call your show? You know what? Do I expect them to call in and be accountable for what they do? Come on. Of course not. But I tell you what. I know the people that I'm shredding right now are listening. They're listening this morning. The coach is listening. So is the president of that soccer club. So is the president of that league. And maybe they are too afraid to call in and face the music. But you know what? The next time a coach trash talks a 10-year-old kid in that town or in that league, those bozos are going to remember Coach Tony. And maybe, just maybe, being an over-the-top masked avenger that I am might stop the next guy from doing the same stupid thing. Jane, I want to thank you so much for that email because you know what? I've been looking for an excuse to say that for a long time. And hopefully that sheds some light on why I do what I do. I'm not looking to convert these people on the air. I'm not a Jerry Falwell of youth sports trying to convert these people. I want them all to see how stupid they look. I want to hold a mirror up to the idiots who trash talk 10-year-old boys. I want to hold a mirror up to the idiots who sue the aluminum bat companies, and while they're waiting for their multi-gazillion-dollar settlement, the kid is playing and using a metal bat. I want to hold a mirror up to the coach who favors his own kid when his kid doesn't belong in the field. Because a lot of these people, they think they're just getting away with something. My show is about making sure you know that you're not getting away with anything. Oh, boy. All right, listen, you know what? Speaking of horrible parents, I got a couple of updates for you. When we get back from break, I'm going to give you some update information on a couple of stories we covered, and it kind of plays into accountability for parents and coaches when you step over that line. So when we come back, we'll take your calls at 855-HEY-COACH, but I'm also going to give you a couple of updates, so you're going to want to stick around. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. We'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Tony Fiorino, and you're listening to the Hey Coach Tony show on 940 and 1510 ESPN Radio. We bring it to you live every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Well, this week we've been talking about trash talking, and right before the break, I addressed an email, and hopefully I gave you a little bit of the mission statement of the Hey Coach Tony show. Our goal here is to call out the true idiots of the world and show some accountability when the leagues and the higher-ups simply don't need, or I should say don't want, to instill any accountability. And along those lines, I want to tell you, there's a great story. And you're going to wonder why I say great story, but bear with me. Anybody remember the name Janet Chiauzzi? Well, if you do, I did a show about this woman some time ago. Janet Chiauzzi is the mom from East Meadow, Long Island, who threatened a Little League official, his wife, and his son after her own son failed to make the town's travel team roster. She was arrested last June after she sent a letter to the principal where the Little League official's kids went to school, accusing the travel baseball coach of child abuse. By the way, important to note, a Child Protective Services investigation turned up absolutely nothing on these claims. Janet Chiauzzi had previously pleaded guilty to six misdemeanor counts and 2 felonies, second-degree stalking and first-degree filing of a false instrument. 3 other charges, including another felony, were dismissed. But if you remember the show, I read some excerpts from those letters, one of which noted, and it was to the kid, and this, again, I believe was a 12-year-old kid, if something terrible happens to your family, you can blame your father. Beyond pathetic. Well, these people all appeared back in court recently, and Chiauzzi addressed the coach's family in court, saying, I'll quote, "I think about it every day. I wish I could take it back. I want you to be able to forgive me someday." She called herself a, quote, normal person and said, "I just don't want you to take me away from my boys." Her lawyer, and I'll always name the lawyers because I think anyone who defends people like this just not a hot enough place in hell. Her lawyer, a guy by the name of Peter Bongiorno, I'm ashamed to use an Italian name with this lawyer, but the guy said, and I will quote, "One thing I've learned doing criminal defense work for 25 years is nice people sometimes do bad things. Sometimes our emotions get the better of us." Well, here's the problem I got with that. Like I said, anybody can screw up, and in the heat of the moment, let your emotions get the better of you. This woman took the time to pen letters to several people, making physical and emotional threats to the coach, which if there's anyone you can understand if she's upset about her son not making the team, I'm not saying she should have written the letter threatening anybody, but you can understand why she was mad at the coach. She then decided, let me write one to his wife. Let me write one to his kid. Let me file a false claim of child abuse to the school where his kids go. That's not letting your emotions get the better of you. That is an unstable human being who, if not treated, and I'm going to use the term treated in a very general term, if not treated, something bad is going to happen. Well, you want to know what happened to her? She's going to jail. That's right. She's going to jail. And you know what? And that's where she belongs. It is only 60 days of jail, but you know what? It's about time somebody finally went to jail for what might have happened instead of waiting until it was too late. How surprised would anybody be if this story ended with she was given probation, she was, released on bail, whatever, and she showed up at the coach's house and shot him and his family? Would anybody really, honestly be surprised if that's how this story would have ended? So I tell you what, for the town court or the county court of Mineola out in Nassau County, congratulations for stepping up, for the Hey Coach Tony Backbone of the Year award and putting this woman in jail. 60 days, like I said, it's not hard time. It's not going to be banging on the rock pile. But this woman is going to go to jail. And like I said before the break, I think the important part of this is the next idiot parent who thinks I'm going to send a threatening letter to my kid's coach because he didn't make the team or she didn't make the team. You're going to think again. Because guess what? There's been precedent set. A threatening letter landed this woman in jail. And I'm personally thrilled. Now, by the way, she was also ordered to make restitution related to the case. I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume, but I guess she's some monetary damages perhaps. And also a restraining order was issued barring her from any contact with the coach and his family. She was also given 5 years of probation. Now I feel better. Jane from Reading, what do you think of that? Type that in your AOL mail account and hit send. That was supposed to be an insult. That didn't sound good at all. All right. Hey, it just wouldn't be a couple of months of time without a couple of stupid lawsuits. So I'm going to try to see if we can get to 2 of these lawsuits before we have to wrap things up here. Adam, question for you. Do public school students have a right to play sports?
Yes.
Wrong! I asked that question in a very general way on purpose. But Adam, let me explain to you that you're not alone.
Okay.
And I'll clarify that statement. The mother of an Arkansas high school student sued the school, the district, and the state after her son was dropped from the basketball team. Her name is Teresa Bloodman. Again, I'll use that name. She filed the suit in October, and after months and months of hearings, motions, and rulings, a trial date is still not set But in her lawsuit, she says her son, who was a freshman, made the team after 2 tryouts in August. After 3 months of practices, the coaches held a third tryout in respect of the football players who were transitioning to basketball who couldn't go to the first tryout. So 9 of the basketball team's 11 players were replaced, including her son. Now, her lawsuit states, and I'll quote, "The deprivation of the right to a full and complete education, which includes competition in sports and consequently athletic scholarships, impairs," and it's the kid, impairs this kid of a property right guaranteed under both the U.S. and state constitutions. Now, let me explain to you why that is a Mongo statement. And Adam, like I said, I asked it in general terms, and I think you're going to agree with the statement I'm going to now revise. Do public school students have the right to play sports? No, they do not. Do public school students have the right to try out for a team? Absolutely. Like, so the difference here is this woman is trying to say, and her bottom-feeding dirtbag lawyer is agreeing, that he has the right to be on the team. Well, no, you just don't. Bloodman, this woman, believes that holding a third tryout violated her son's equal protection right because it's not the same method used by a girls' team when they pick their squads. She also says, we couldn't leave this statement out, she also says the coaches are not certified nor qualified to coach and therefore not competent to decide who should make the team. Really? I'm coaching the team. Who should? You want to get the librarian to come in and see who makes the team? This is why idiots like this, I swear to God, I wish I could just post their addresses up on the Facebook page because, seriously, not enough toilet paper to hang from this lady's house. Not Charmin should sponsor the show with the amount of toilet paper parties I'm trying to sew.
How do these lawsuits even, come about? Isn't someone, with common sense be like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Just throw this away. I mean, this is I'm speechless. I don't know. So this on top of it, if there's not enough stupid accusations here, finally she says her son wasn't given the opportunity to appeal his dismissal from the team, which she says is a due process violation. Well, to answer your question, Adam, obviously there are not enough, there should be a common sense filter thrown into things like this where someone says, you're just too stupid. But the fact is, Adam, I can sue you for the shoes you're wearing right now. And there will be hearings, and there will be costs, and taxpayers will continue to eat that, and they will eventually get thrown out. Let's see. The simple issue here is whether or not a student has the right to participate in extracurricular activities, whether it's band, choir, or whatever. That's according to Jay Biquette, who is the attorney for the Pulaski County Special School District. In the district's response to that lawsuit, he quotes a prior Eighth Circuit ruling which says, and I quote, "There is no clearly established right of parents to have their kids compete in interscholastic athletics." So there's already been a ruling on this, which basically says you're too stupid, you're not allowed to sue. That's just ridiculous. All right, I'm not going to go through all this. Is there another one here? Oh yeah, here we go. Get this one. A hockey lawsuit. So it combines my two favorite things: stupid lawsuits and hockey. Kid named Tucker Hannon. If you remember the name, we touched on this one too. A kid's from Duxbury, Massachusetts. Kid skated over the blue line in a game, got a pass, and took a shot. But he took a shot in more ways than one. As the shot sailed wide of the net, Situate's High School's Alex Way charged in from the right and sent this kid flying to the ice with a nasty check. It was a brutal, hard hit. The check did not land the kid in the penalty box, but almost landed him in court. That's because Hannon's parents were seeking an assault and battery charge against this high school senior. Hannon's hang on. The kid the kid suffered a severe concussion, right? On the play, caused him to miss the rest of the hockey season and 5 weeks of school, which is tragic. Now, the quote from Jay Mullen, who is the bottom-feeding dirtbag attorney in this case for the attorney for the mentally challenged, was, quote, "If this check was off the rink on a public street, that is gross, negligent assault and battery." Guess what, idiot lawyer? You're right. But guess what? It wasn't. It was on the ice, you idiot. That's like saying I went to Madison Square Garden and there was a brutal fight. This one guy was just repeatedly punching the guy over and over until he fell down. The guy couldn't get up for 10 seconds. Normally, yeah, assault and battery. But on a Friday night, it's called a boxing match. So yeah, if you take those two idiots out of the ring, it's assault and battery. But if my aunt, oh boy, I almost used the old, if my aunt had certain things, she'd be my uncle. But that's the point. That is the whole point of this. This guy says that the other kid intentionally took aim at Hannon's head and hit him after the play was over. Situate's boys hockey coach, a guy named Mike Breen, said that it was a very clean hit, no intent to hurt the other player. Now, here's what gets me. Thomas Hannon, who is Tucker Hannon's dad, said he only filed the complaint because Situate's school administrators, the athletic department, and the hockey coaches didn't respond to his family's request for a sit-down meeting to discuss the hit. Guess what, dope, dummy? You don't get that. Nobody is obliged, no one is obligated to sit down with you because your son got a boo-boo. You signed up to play hockey. Aren't hockey players supposed to be tough guys? Aren't you supposed to be a badass? Oh, great. I wanted to shred this guy a little bit more, but you know what? That's going to wrap it up on another week of Hey Coach Tony. As always, I appreciate the emails and the phone calls. And by the way, you know what else I appreciate? The idiot parents and coaches, because without you guys, there is no Hey Coach Tony show. So do me a favor. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.